Hi guys, so today I'll be talking about the roadmap to becoming a solid Android developer. So I'm going to start with the programming language. So at the moment, Google supports two programming languages for Android development. The first programming language is Java, and the official language now is Kotlin. So Google adopted Kotlin since 2017 as the official language for Android development, and the official IDE, that's the integrated the development environment for Android development, is Android Studio. So you have to get that installed on your system if you want to learn Android development. So and there are two approaches to designing. So I'm going to talk about the user interfaces now. So there are two approaches to designing user interfaces in Android. So we have the XML. So you can build your UI by writing XML, and more recently, Google introduced Jetpack Compose as the new way to build your UI. And Jetpack Compose is a declarative way to build your UI, so it makes it very awesome. It's a very awesome way to build, and a very simplistic way to build your UI than the old way using XML. So the modern Android development is done in Compose now, while XML still works perfectly, and they are interoperable. So meaning you can have both Compose and XML in the same project, and even for a Compose project, there are still some parts like your theming and the likes that you still have to write in XML. So next, I'm going to be talking about the Android core components. That is the core things you need to know in Android development for you to be a solid developer. So the first thing I'm talking about is an activity. So activity and fragments. So activity and fragments are like they are classes actually that extend the component activity of every Android application. So and you can build a whole application on just a single activity, or for a very large application, you can have multiple activities hosted along with fragments. And you must also understand your intent and intent filter. So intent can help you move between activities. It can also help you you do system wide for your system-wide movements. You want to get things, maybe you want to use a web view in your application, so you also need an intent to be able to use your web view. Another thing you must really understand is the concept of permissions. So for security reasons, not every permission is granted to you. So you must seek permission. You must learn how to use your permission. So take for example, you want to have access to the camera of the user, or you want to have access to the gallery, you want to have access to the location. So you must take permission. You must request, ask the user to request for permission in Android development. So it's one core thing you must understand, because there are a lot of features you want to use that you require permission to do it. And even if you write the code without requesting for permission, your application may crash at runtime. So another thing you really also need to understand is your data storage. That is how to persist your data locally. And there are a couple of options. So one of them is shared preferences, and is used for storing very light data and very simple data, usually in form of strings that you want to call. And we also have the database. So the old so if you're writing with maybe Java, you can use your SQLite database, but with Kotlin, you can use a more recent database. That's the Room DB, so you can use to persist data locally. So I'm going to also talk about how to make network calls. So it's another fundamental thing you need to understand as an Android developer: how to make network calls, how to make API calls, and you must get yourself familiar with libraries like retrofit, OK, HTTP for making your network calls. You might also want to load images remotely, so you must be familiar with libraries like Coil, Glide. So they help you to load images remotely in a very, very efficient and effective manner. So you must be able to also look at the advanced concepts in Android development. So concept like your dependency injection. So you must understand how to use dependency injection. And dependency injection helps. One of the problems it solves is you don't have to instantiate a particular class or value that you need across your application. So once it's injected into your application class, from anywhere you want to use that particular class, you just call that instance that has been injected in your application wide class. So Android has a particular class called the application class that, which is the class that the Android system or your operating system fundamentally calls to run your application. So when you inject any class into your application class, it can be called from any activity or fragments across your application. Another advanced concept you must understand is how to run background task. So there are a number of ways to run background tasks in Android. So we have the async task for running background tasks. You can also use your work manager to run a background task. So you can schedule. So work manager help you to schedule a particular task. So I may want a task to repeat itself maybe every time the user launches the application, or in maybe every 1 hour, every 2 hours. I want to make that call. So your background work manager help you to achieve such. You also understand the concepts around receivers, broadcasters. So they are broadcasts that you want to send to maybe to other application on the operating system, or you want to get and the receiver is able to, you want to get so take for example you want to use Bluetooth, you want to receive everything that is being updated at a particular time. So that's where you need your services, your receivers, and the like. So you must also come to understand architecture. Architecture is very fundamental in Android development. So we have a number of popular architecture. So we have MVVM, we have MVI, we have MVP. The most common of it and recommended by Google is MVVM. MVVM stands for Model View View Model. So it's one of the architectures that you must get familiar with in Android development. You must also understand clean patterns. So clean patterns like solid, like keys. So there are common ways where developers write code, so that when you have to read the code of other developers, you won't struggle with such concepts. So another important thing I'm going to mention is testing and debugging. So you must familiarize yourself with how to write unit tests and UI tests. So you basically write unit tests for your view models and you write UI tests to test your UI, of course, just from the name. So so you must get to know how to use your unit test, how to use your UI test, how to be open to debugging tools like logcats. So you must not use logcats. So you can log a particular information so that when your application runs to that point, it helps with debug to know to get a particular value, or to even be sure that your application is calling a particular function correctly. And finally, I'm going to be speaking about build and release. So you must know how to build your application. You must know how to create different types, different variants of build. You may want to have a build for your debug, a build for your release. So, take for example, your build for your debug may allow for login to the logcat, and the build for your release will not allow that. And officially, your release build should be a .aab files that are going to be released, or that are going to be published on Google Play. So you must also understand how to use how to publish your application on Play Store. So it's fundamental for a developer that after you have written your code and your application is working fine, you want to publish it. So you must get familiar on how to publish your application on Play Store. Thank you for staying till the end of this video. Do like and subscribe. Thank you.